Hey there! Welcome to Tales Narration.
This is unacceptable, Claire muttered under her breath, her fingers gripping the edge of her desk so tightly her knuckles turned white. She stared at the email on her screen, the words blurring as her vision narrowed. The promotion she'd been working toward for months, gone. Handed to her. Olivia. Her so-called coworker. More like a backstabbing opportunist. Claire leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She knew exactly what had happened. That last-minute error in her presentation wasn't an accident. Olivia had been too quick to step in, too polished with her own pitch. Claire should have seen it coming. But now? Now she had to act. And she wasn't about to play fair. Her eyes darted across the office floor, landing on Olivia's boyfriend, Ethan, sitting at his desk a few rows away. He was typing away, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in Claire's mind. A plan began to form, sharp and calculated. If Olivia wanted to play dirty, Claire could do the same, but smarter. She stood up, smoothing out her blouse and running a hand through her hair. Casual. Confident. She grabbed her coffee mug and made her way to the break room, deliberately taking the long route past Ethan's desk. As she approached, she let her ankle catch on the leg of his chair, stumbling just enough to spill a little coffee on his desk. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," Claire exclaimed, setting the mug down and grabbing a tissue from his desk. She leaned over him slightly, her blouse brushing his arm as she dabbed at the tiny puddle. "I'm such a klutz today." Ethan chuckled nervously, his cheeks tinged with pink. "It's fine, really. Just a little spill." "Still, I feel awful," she said, flashing him a warm smile as she straightened up. "Let me make it up to you." "Coffee?" "My treat." "You don't have to," he started. "I insist," Claire interrupted, her tone light but firm. "You're always so nice to everyone around here. It's the least I can do." Ethan hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All right, sure. Thanks." She grinned, carefully hiding the satisfaction bubbling beneath the surface. "Great. How about after work? There's that new place on 5th. "Sounds good," he said, returning her smile. As Claire walked back to her desk, she felt the weight of Olivia's gaze from across the room. She didn't need to look over to know her rival was watching. Good. Let her wonder. That evening, Claire arrived at the coffee shop a few minutes early, choosing a table near the window where they'd be visible from the street. She glanced at her reflection in the glass, adjusting her necklace and reapplying a subtle layer of lip gloss. When Ethan walked in, she waved him over with a friendly smile. "Hey. Thanks for meeting me," she said as he sat down. "No problem," he replied, looking a little flustered. "This place is nice." They made small talk at first, work, the weather, even some harmless office gossip, but Claire steered the conversation carefully, asking questions about him that she already knew the answers to. How long he'd been with Olivia, 2 years, what he liked to do in his free time, hiking and photography, and whether he ever thought about traveling, always. As the evening wore on, she leaned in slightly when he spoke, laughing at his jokes and brushing her hand against his arm a few times. Subtle touches. Innocent enough, but she noticed the way his eyes lingered on her a second longer than necessary. When it was time to leave, Claire stood up and smiled at him. "Thanks for this. I needed a break after everything at work." "Me too," Ethan admitted, his tone softening. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "You're really easy to talk to, Claire." She tilted her head slightly, her smile a little coy. "You are too. Maybe we should do this again sometime?" He blinked, clearly caught off guard. Yeah. That would be great." Claire gave him one last smile before turning to leave, knowing full well he was watching her go. She didn't need to rush this. Slow and steady would win this game. The next day at work, Olivia's eyes were like daggers as Claire passed by her desk. Claire met her gaze briefly, giving her a polite nod before continuing to her own workspace. She didn't need to say a word. The seeds were planted. Later that afternoon, she caught Ethan lingering near the printer, pretending to adjust papers while glancing in her direction. She pretended not to notice, focusing on her screen, but she could feel the tension in the air. It was working. "Claire?" Ethan's voice broke her concentration. She looked up to find him standing awkwardly by her desk. "Yeah," she asked, feigning innocence. "I was wondering if you wanted to grab lunch sometime this week," he said quickly, as if he'd been rehearsing the words in his head. She paused for just a moment, letting the silence stretch just enough to make him nervous before smiling warmly. "I'd love to." Ethan's shoulders relaxed visibly, and he returned her smile. "Great. How about Wednesday?" "Wednesday works," Claire agreed, her tone casual but her mind already calculating her next move. As he walked away, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smirk. Olivia might have won the battle, but Claire was going to win the war. And this was only the beginning. The soft glow of Claire's phone screen illuminated her face as she lounged on her couch, a glass of wine in hand. The hum of the city outside her apartment was muted, a distant soundtrack to her thoughts. She swiped absently through her notifications, a few work emails, a reminder about a meeting tomorrow, and then, an unknown number. Her brows furrowed slightly as she tapped the message open. The text was simple, just one line, "Thought you should see this." Below it was a photo. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she zoomed in. It was Olivia. But not the Olivia she knew from the office, the sharp, calculated woman who always seemed to be one step ahead. No, this Olivia was leaning against a bar, her lips curled into a sultry smile, her hand resting on the arm of a man who was decidedly not Ethan. He was older, with salt and pepper hair and a tailored suit that screamed money. The way Olivia's eyes locked with his, the way her body angled toward him. It was intimate. Too intimate to be casual. Claire sat up straighter, her mind racing. She stared at the photo for a long moment, her fingers hovering over the screen. Who had sent this? And why? More importantly, how could she use it? Her lips curled into a slow, calculating smile. This changed everything. Olivia's meticulous facade had a crack, and Claire intended to pry it wide open. She set her wine glass down and paced the room, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. Her mind worked quickly, piecing together the fragments of her plan. If Olivia was stepping out on Ethan, and if Ethan found out, it would shatter their relationship. And if Claire was there to pick up the pieces? Her phone buzzed again, snapping her out of her thoughts. Another text from the same number, "Let me know if you need more." Claire didn't respond immediately. Instead, she saved the number and filed away the information for later. Whoever this was, they were clearly on her side. Or at least, they had their own reasons for wanting Olivia brought down. For now, that was enough. The next morning, Claire arrived at the office early, her usual confidence amplified by the secret she now carried. She walked past Olivia's desk, catching a glimpse of her rival typing furiously on her laptop. Claire's lips twitched into a sly smirk as she continued to her own workspace. Ethan was already there, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows as he leaned over his desk, engrossed in a report. Claire paused for a moment, studying him. There was something undeniably attractive about him, his messy hair, the intensity in his eyes when he focused, the way his shirt clung to his lean frame. She shook herself mentally. Focus. She approached his desk, her voice soft but firm. "Morning, Ethan." He looked up, a smile spreading across his face. "Hey, Claire. You're here early." "Could say the same about you," she replied, leaning casually against the edge of his desk. "Busy morning?" "Just trying to get ahead of things," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Olivia's been breathing down my neck about this project." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Sounds stressful. You guys okay?" Ethan hesitated, his gaze dropping to his desk. "Yeah, we're fine. Just, you know how it is. Claire nodded sympathetically, though internally she was reveling in the tension she detected in his voice. Well, if you ever need to vent, I'm here, she said lightly. We all need someone to talk to sometimes. He looked up at her, his expression softening. Thanks, Claire. I appreciate that. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. Claire felt a thrill run through her, but she forced herself to stay composed. This wasn't the time or place, yet. As she turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of Olivia watching them from across the room. Her rival's sharp eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion flickering in their depths. Claire met her gaze head-on, a subtle challenge in her own eyes. Little do you know, she thought, your house of cards is already crumbling. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and emails, but Claire's mind kept returning to the photo. She needed to tread carefully, too much too soon could backfire. But she also couldn't afford to wait too long. That evening, as she packed up her things to leave, Ethan stopped by her desk. Hey, Claire, he began, his voice slightly hesitant. I was wondering, do you want to grab dinner? I could use some company. Claire smiled warmly, though her heart raced with anticipation. I'd love to. As they left the office together, she couldn't help but glance back at Olivia's empty desk. Her rival had left early, perhaps for another rendezvous with the man from the photo. Claire's lips curved into a sly smile as she followed Ethan out the door. The city lights blurred past as they walked to a nearby restaurant, the conversation flowing easily between them. Ethan seemed more relaxed than he had in weeks, and Claire was careful to keep things light but engaging. She laughed at his jokes, listened intently as he talked about his latest project, and occasionally let her hand brush against his arm, small touches that sent sparks of electricity through the air. As they sipped their wine and shared a dessert, Claire leaned in slightly, her voice lowering to a near whisper. You know, Ethan, sometimes it feels like we're the only two people in the world who really get what's going on in that office. He looked at her, his eyes searching hers. Yeah, he said quietly. Sometimes it feels that way to me too. Her pulse quickened as she held his gaze, the tension between them palpable. She could see the conflict in his eyes. The pull of loyalty to Olivia warring with something deeper, something that had been simmering beneath the surface ever since they'd started spending more time together. Claire leaned back slightly, breaking the moment before it escalated further. She didn't want to rush this, she wanted him to come to her, fully and willingly. And she was willing to play the long game. As they left the restaurant and walked back toward the office building where they'd parked their cars, Ethan paused by her car, his hands shoved into his pockets. Claire, he began, his voice uncertain. I just wanted to say, thanks. For tonight. It's been really nice. She smiled up at him, her eyes warm and inviting. Anytime, Ethan. Then, because she couldn't resist pushing just a little further, she added, you know where to find me. As she drove home that night, Claire couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her, the way his defenses had started to crumble. It was only a matter of time now. Her phone buzzed again as she pulled into her driveway. Another anonymous text, let me know if you need more evidence. Claire smirked as she typed out a quick reply, I might take you up on that soon. For now, though, she had everything she needed. The wheels were in motion, and Claire was exactly where she wanted to be. One step closer to victory.